My son's kidney stays in his body. I'd rather he get a new wife than have a single scar for a woman like you." The venomous words came not from an enemy, but from a mother protecting her son. Her command was absolute, and Marcus, her son, stood frozen between the woman he loved and the mother he always obeyed. He looked at his brilliant fading wife, Imani, and his silence was a verdict. He chose his mother, leaving his wife to face death alone. But fate has a cruel sense of irony. An anonymous donor would soon step from the shadows, offering Imani the one thing her own family wouldn't: life. It's a secret that will trigger a devastating confrontation, revealing that a husband's choice can cost him absolutely everything. If you're hearing this, let me know where and when you're tuning in from. Be sure to share this with someone who knows that family secrets never stay buried, because the truth behind this story is a twist you have to hear to believe. Imani Washington stood on the stage, the weight of the Lawyer of the Year plaque cold and solid in her hands. The applause thundered around her, a tide of admiration from colleagues who saw her as a beacon, a black woman who'd clawed her way past every barrier to stand here, triumphant. Her smile was steady, practiced, but inside her heart raced with a mix of pride and disbelief. "I did it. I actually did it." She scanned the crowd, their faces a blur of awe and envy, and for a moment she felt untouchable. "Thank you," she said into the microphone, her voice clear, cutting through the din. "This isn't just my victory. It's for every woman who's been told she's too much or not enough." The words felt like fire in her throat, born from years of fighting against dismissive professors, skeptical clients, and the subtle sting of being the only one like her in the room. A young associate, Maya, caught her eye from the front row, her gaze wide with hero worship. Amani's smile softened. "Keep going, girl. You'll get here too." As the applause faded, she stepped off the stage, heels clicking against polished wood. Maya intercepted her, nervous but eager. "Ms. Washington, how do you stay so fearless?" Imani paused, the question piercing something raw inside her. "Fearless? If only you knew how many nights I've doubted myself." "Believe in your worth," she said, touching Maya's arm, "and don't let anyone take it from you." The words felt like a vow, one she'd made to herself long ago. By the time Imani pulled into the driveway of their Buckhead home, the adrenaline of the evening had softened into a warm glow. The house stood elegant in the moonlight, its white exterior gleaming, the garden's hydrangeas nodding in the breeze. She stepped inside, and the scent of seared steak and rosemary hit her, a promise of Marcus's handiwork. Her husband stood at the stove, his broad shoulders relaxed, a glass of red wine in hand. "There's my star," he said, his deep voice wrapping around her like a blanket. Imani kicked off her heels, the cool hardwood soothing her aching feet. "You watched the speech?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Marcus grinned, setting down his wine to pull her into his arms. "Every word. You were perfect, as always." His lips brushed her forehead and she melted into him, the world shrinking to the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. "This is home. This is everything." They sat at the candlelit table, the clink of cutlery punctuating their laughter. Marcus teased her about her Oscar-worthy speech, and she countered with plans for a Bahamas getaway. "Just us, Sand, and no depositions," she said, her voice dreamy. Marcus squeezed her hand. "You, me, forever. That's the deal." Later, as they cleared the dishes, Amani's body betrayed her. A dull ache bloomed in her lower back. Her ankles felt tight in her skin, and a wave of exhaustion hit her like a freight train. She leaned against the counter, catching her breath. Too many late nights, too much coffee. Marcus noticed, his brow furrowing. "You okay, baby?" His hand rested on her shoulder, warm but insistent. "You've been off lately. When's the last time you saw a doctor?" Imani waved him off, forcing a laugh. "I'm fine. Just need a good night's sleep." But his eyes lingered, worry etched in the lines around them. "I'm serious, Imani. You're pushing too hard." She nodded, more to ease his mind than her own. "He's right, but I can't slow down now. Not when I'm this close to everything I've worked for." The ache in her back pulsed, a quiet warning she ignored as she kissed him goodnight. Days later, the sterile scent of antiseptic stung Amani's nose as she sat in Dr. Richards' office. The room was too white, too quiet, the hum of the air conditioner a low drone. She adjusted her blazer, trying to anchor herself in the familiar, her armor. Marcus sat beside her, his knee bouncing slightly, betraying his calm facade. Dr. Richards, gray-haired and grave, slid a folder across the desk. "Ms. Washington," he began, his voice heavy, "your tests show end-stage renal failure. You need a kidney transplant, and you need it soon." The words hit like a physical blow, stealing her breath. End stage? How? I'm 35. I'm healthy. Her mind spiraled, replaying every late night, every skipped meal, every moment she'd pushed her body past its limits. Is this my fault? She glanced at Marcus, his face pale, eyes wide with fear. How long do I have? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Richards hesitated. Without a transplant, a few months, maybe less. Marcus reached for her hand, his grip tight, almost desperate. We'll find a donor, he said, his voice cracking. We'll figure this out. But Imani's mind was elsewhere, caught in a storm of questions. Why didn't I see this coming? How do I fight something I can't sue or argue away? The plaque, the gala, the perfect life. It all felt like a cruel joke now. She stared at the test results, the numbers blurring through unshed tears. This can't be real. But the cold paper in her hands told her it was. As they left the office, the hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows. Marcus pulled her close, his arms a familiar haven, but Imani felt a crack forming in her heart. What happens now? The life she'd built, her career, her marriage, her dreams, felt like a house of cards trembling in the wind. She leaned into Marcus, clinging to the one thing she still trusted, but a quiet voice whispered in her mind. Nothing will ever be the same. Imani's world had shrunk to the sterile walls of the hospital consultation room, the antiseptic sting still lingering in her nose as she sat across from Dr. Richards a week later. Her fingers twisted the strap of her purse, the leather creaking under her grip. This can't be my life now. The diagnosis echoed in her mind. End-stage renal failure, like a verdict she couldn't appeal. Marcus sat beside her, his hand resting on hers, warm but trembling. She glanced at him, his jaw tight, eyes fixed on the doctor. He's scared too, but he's here. That thought anchored her, if only for a moment. Dr. Richards cleared his throat, his voice steady but kind. We have good news, Ms. Washington. Your husband's test results came back. He's a perfect match for the transplant. The words hit like sunlight breaking through a storm. Imani's breath caught, her heart stuttering. A match. Marcus. She turned to him, tears welling as he squeezed her hand, his smile fragile but real. Told you we'd figure this out, he whispered, his voice thick. She leaned into him, her forehead against his, and for the first time in days, hope flickered in her chest. We can do this. Together. The doctor explained the procedure. Low risk for Marcus, high success rate for her. Imani nodded, half listening, her mind racing with relief. He's giving me a chance to live. She imagined the surgery, the recovery, their life picking up where it left off. Dinners, laughter, the Bahamas. Marcus's hand stayed firm in hers, his thumb tracing small circles on her skin. I'd give you both kidneys if I could, he said, a weak laugh breaking through. She laughed too, the sound foreign in her throat. He's my rock, always has been. Back home, the glow of hope followed them. Marcus insisted on cooking again, the kitchen filled with the sizzle of garlic and onions. Imani sat at the counter, watching him chop vegetables with practiced ease. He's doing this for me. For us. But a shadow lingered in her mind. Her body's betrayal, the ache in her back that hadn't eased, the swelling in her ankles that mocked her strength. I'm not invincible. Not anymore. She pushed the thought away, focusing on Marcus's voice as he talked about their future. After this, we're taking that trip. No excuses, he said, pointing a wooden spoon at her. She smiled, but the effort felt heavy. That evening, Marcus stepped outside to call his mother, Eleanor. Imani heard his voice through the open window. low and urgent. He's telling her. Of course he is. She tried to focus on her laptop, skimming emails from work, but her ears strained for his words. Yeah, Mom. I'm a match. No, it's safe. I have to do this. His tone grew defensive, and Imani's stomach tightened. Why does he sound like he's pleading? She shook her head, telling herself it was nothing. Eleanor was protective, overly so, but she'd come around. She has to. When Marcus returned, his face was drawn, his usual warmth dimmed. Everything okay? Imani asked, her voice light but probing. He nodded too quickly. Yeah, just... Mom's worried, you know how she is. Imani raised an eyebrow, waiting for more, but he busied himself with the dishes. He's hiding something. The thought came unbidden, sharp and unfamiliar. She'd never doubted Marcus before, not in their 5 years together, but his avoidance, the way his eyes darted away from hers, planted a seed of unease. He's just stressed. We both are. The next day, the seed grew. They sat in the living room, the TV murmuring news neither of them cared about. Imani brought up the surgery schedule, her voice steady despite the fatigue pulling at her. The hospital wants to set a date soon. What do you think? Marcus shifted on the couch, his fingers tapping against his knee. We should look into it more, he said, his words careful. Make sure we're ready. Imani frowned, her heart sinking. Ready? He's a match. What's there to wait for? Marcus, this is my life we're talking about, she said, sharper than she meant. He flinched, his eyes flicking to the floor. I know, baby. Mom said we should be careful. There are risks, you know. Imani's blood ran cold. Mom said. The words stung, a betrayal she hadn't expected. What risks? She pressed, her lawyer's instinct kicking in, dissecting his tone. Marcus hesitated, his hands clenching. She read about complications, long-term stuff for donors. She's just looking out for me. Imani's chest tightened, her breath shallow. Looking out for him? What about me? She stared at him, searching for the man who'd promised her forever, but his eyes wouldn't meet hers. Marcus, do you want to do this? Her voice was steady, but inside she was crumbling. Please say yes. Please. He reached for her hand, but the gesture felt hollow. Of course I do. I just need time to think. Time. The word echoed in her mind, a warning bell. He's pulling away. She nodded, swallowing the hurt, and turned back to the TV, the chatter filling the silence between them. The room felt colder, the air heavy with unspoken words. He's always been my strength. Why does he feel so far away now? Later, alone in their bedroom, Imani stood before the mirror, her fingers tracing the swollen curve of her ankles. This body isn't mine anymore. The thought was a knife, twisting deeper with every heartbeat. She thought of Marcus's hesitation, his mother's shadow looming over them. What did Eleanor say to him? The woman had always been distant, her warmth reserved for Marcus alone, but Imani had never seen her as a threat. Until now, she's planting doubts, and he's listening. The realization cut deeper than the diagnosis, a betrayal she couldn't name. She climbed into bed, the sheets cool against her skin, and stared at the ceiling. I can't lose him, not now. But as sleep eluded her, the seed of doubt grew roots, curling around her heart. The perfect foundation of their life was cracking, and Imani wasn't sure she could hold it together. The dining room smelled of warm sugar and cinnamon, Eleanor's homemade cookies arranged on a delicate porcelain plate, a false gesture of goodwill. Imani sat at the oak table, her fingers tracing the grain of the wood, grounding herself against the tension coiling in her chest. She's here to check on me, or to gloat. Eleanor stood by the window, her navy blazer pristine, her posture rigid, as if she owned the space. Marcus hovered near the kitchen doorway, his shoulders slumped, caught between the two women. The air was thick, the silence oppressive, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator. Say something, Marcus. Don't just stand there. Imani's eyes flicked to him, but he avoided her gaze, his hands stuffed in his pockets. Eleanor turned, her smile tight, almost predatory. Imani, you're looking, well, considering, she said, her voice dripping with false concern. Imani's jaw clenched. the words slicing through her. Considering I'm dying? She forced a polite nod, her lawyer's composure a shield. Thank you, Eleanor. I'm managing. But inside her heart pounded, a drumbeat of anger and fear. She's never liked me. Why is she here now? Marcus cleared his throat, attempting to ease the tension. Mom brought cookies. Thought it'd be nice. His voice was strained, a plea for normalcy. Amani's stomach churned. Nice? Nothing about this is nice. Eleanor sat across from her, folding her hands neatly. Marcus told me about the transplant, she said, her eyes locking onto her son. It's a big decision, a family matter. The word family landed like a stone, excluding Imani. I'm his family, not you. Her fingers tightened around her glass of water, the cold seeping into her skin. The conversation shifted and Eleanor's tone hardened. Marcus, you're my only son. This surgery, it's not just about her. She gestured toward Imani without looking at her. It's about our bloodline, our future. You can't risk your health. Imani's breath hitched, her body stiffening. Our bloodline. The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in. She opened her mouth to respond, but Eleanor pressed on, her voice sharp. I won't allow you to give up a kidney. It belongs to this family. Imani's heart shattered, the pieces jagged and raw. She's telling him to let me die. She looked at Marcus, waiting for him to speak, to defend her, to choose her. But he stood frozen, his eyes darting between his mother and the floor. Say something. Please. The silence was deafening, a betrayal louder than words. Her chest ached, not from the illness, but from the void where his support should have been. Eleanor, Imani said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. This is between me and Marcus. He's my husband. Eleanor's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a sneer. If you weren't here, Marcus could have a healthy wife, someone who wouldn't burden him like this. The words were a blade slicing through Imani's resolve. Burden. The accusation echoed in her mind, feeding every insecurity she'd buried, the fear that she was too much, not enough, that her illness made her less. She stood, her chair scraping against the floor. Get out, she said, her voice low, trembling with fury. You don't get to talk to me like that in my own home. Eleanor rose, unfazed, her smile cold. I'm just being honest, for my son's sake. She walked out, leaving the plate of cookies untouched, a mocking reminder of her presence. The door clicked shut, and Imani turned to Marcus, her eyes burning. Why didn't you say anything? She demanded, her voice breaking. She told you to let me die, and you just stood there. Marcus flinched, his hands raised as if to ward off her words. I didn't want to make it worse, he stammered. She's my mom, Imani. She's just scared for me. Scared for you? Imani's laugh was bitter, hollow. What about me? I'm the one who might not make it. Her hands shook, the weight of his silence crushing her. He's supposed to be my partner, my everything. She stepped closer, searching his face for the man she loved. Who are you standing with, Marcus? Me or her? He looked away, his jaw working, but no words came. The absence of his answer was a wound, deeper than Eleanor's cruelty. He's choosing her, or he's too weak to choose at all. Imani turned away, her vision blurring with tears. I've never felt so alone, she whispered, more to herself than to him. She walked to the living room, the darkness swallowing her as she sank onto the couch. The house, once a haven, felt like a prison, its silence suffocating. This is our home. How did it become a battlefield? She curled her legs beneath her, the ache in her back a cruel reminder of her body's fragility. I can't rely on him, not anymore. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, shattering the quiet. She grabbed it, her hands trembling as she answered. Ms. Washington, a calm voice said, this is Dr. Richard's office. We have good news. We found an anonymous donor match for your transplant. Imani's breath caught, her heart stuttering. A donor. Relief flooded her, but it was tainted by the hollowness in her chest. She glanced at Marcus, who stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. Thank you, she said into the phone, her voice flat. She hung up, her eyes meeting his. They found a donor, she said, the words heavy. Guess I don't need you after all. Marcus stepped forward, his mouth opening, but Imani raised a hand, stopping him. Don't, she said, her voice cold. I can't do this right now. She stood brushing past him, the distance between them a chasm. He hesitated. He let her tear me apart. The relief of the donor's news was overshadowed by the pain of his betrayal. She climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last, her mind a storm of anger and grief. I thought we were unbreakable. In their bedroom, she sank onto the bed, the sheets cold against her skin. The future she'd imagined, Marcus by her side, their love unyielding, felt like a dream slipping through her fingers. As she stared at the ceiling, the question gnawed at her. Can I forgive him for this? The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that pressed against Imani's ears like a physical weight. She sat at the kitchen counter, a mug of tea cooling untouched before her, the faint scent of chamomile doing nothing to soothe the ache in her chest. He's right there, but he might as well be a stranger. Marcus moved through the room, setting out plates for breakfast, his movements mechanical, his eyes avoiding hers. The clink of porcelain against the counter was the only sound, each one a reminder of the chasm between them. We used to laugh here. Now it's a graveyard. Imani's fingers traced the rim of her mug, her mind replaying Eleanor's venomous words and Marcus's silence. He didn't defend me. He didn't choose me. The memory burned, a wound that refused to close. She glanced at him, his back turned as he scrambled eggs, the sizzle a mockery of normalcy. You don't have to do this, she said, her voice flat, cutting through the quiet. Marcus froze, his shoulders tensing. Do what? He asked, not turning around. You know what? She didn't answer, letting the silence speak for her. You're acting like nothing happened, but everything's changed. He set a plate of eggs and toast before her, the gesture hollow. Eat something, Imani. You need your strength. His voice was soft, pleading, but it grated against her raw nerves. Strength? I've been strong my whole life. Where were you when I needed you? She pushed the plate away, her appetite gone. I'm not hungry, she said, standing to leave. Marcus reached for her arm, his touch tentative, but she pulled back, the contact stinging. His eyes flickered with guilt, but he said nothing, and the silence grew heavier, a wall she couldn't breach. The doorbell rang, a sharp intrusion. Imani's mother, Evelyn, stepped inside, her presence a warm contrast to the coldness of the house. The scent of her lavender perfume filled the room as she pulled Imani into a hug, her arms a lifeline. My baby, Evelyn whispered, her voice thick with love. Imani clung to her, tears threatening to spill. She's here. At least someone is. Evelyn's eyes scanned the room, landing on Marcus, who stood awkwardly by the counter. Marcus, she said, her tone polite but cool. Good to see you. He nodded, mumbling a greeting, his discomfort palpable. He knows she sees through him. Evelyn took over the kitchen, her movements sure as she cooked Imani's favorite. Chicken soup and cornbread, the smells of home wrapping around Imani like a blanket. They sat together, Evelyn's hand resting on hers, her touch steadying. Tell me how you're feeling, sweetheart, Evelyn said, her eyes searching Imani's face. The question cracked something open, and Imani's voice broke as she spoke. I'm scared, Mama, and I'm so angry. Marcus, he just stood there while she tore me apart. Evelyn's face softened, but her grip tightened. You're stronger than this, Imani. Stronger than him, stronger than her. You'll get through this. But will I get through it with him? The question hung in Imani's mind, unanswered. Marcus lingered on the edges, his presence a ghost in their home. Imani watched him, her heart torn between love and betrayal. I used to know every part of him. Now I don't know who he is. The ache in her back pulsed, her body reminding her of its fragility. She excused herself, retreating to the bedroom to pack for the hospital. The suitcase lay open on the bed, her clothes folded with precision, a small act of control in a world spinning out of her grasp. I can do this alone if I have to. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the dim hall light. Imani, he said, his voice low, I have to go to San Francisco. A work thing. I won't be here for the surgery. The words hit like a slap, cold and sharp. A lie. She saw it in the way his eyes darted to the floor, the slight tremor in his voice. He's running. Her heart sank, the last thread of trust fraying. Work, she repeated, her voice devoid of warmth. Of course." She turned back to her suitcase, folding a sweater with deliberate care. "He's abandoning me when I need him most." Marcus stepped closer, his hand hovering as if to touch her, but he stopped short. "I'm sorry, baby. I'll be back right after." His voice cracked, but Imani didn't look up. "Sorry doesn't fix this." She nodded, the motion mechanical. "Go," she said, her tone final. He lingered a moment, then left, the sound of his footsteps fading down the hall. Imani sank onto the bed, the mattress creaking under her weight. He's gone, just like that. The room felt vast, empty, the silence swallowing her whole. She pressed her hands to her face, her fingers trembling. "I thought we were forever. Was I wrong?" Evelyn found her there sitting in the dark. Without a word, she sat beside Imani, her arm wrapping around her daughter's shoulders. "You don't need him to be strong," Evelyn said, her voice fierce yet gentle. "You've got me. You've got yourself." Imani leaned into her, the warmth of her mother's embrace a lifeline. But the pain of Marcus's absence gnawed at her, a betrayal deeper than Eleanor's cruelty. He lied. He left. She stared at the suitcase, her future reduced to a few folded clothes and a donor she didn't know. "I'll survive this. But can our marriage?" The question lingered, unanswered, as the night stretched on, the silence louder than ever. The hospital room was a cocoon of sterile white, the fluorescent lights casting a harsh glow that made Imani's skin look sallow against the starched sheets. The air smelled of antiseptic, sharp and biting, mingling with the faint metallic tang of medical equipment. She lay in the bed, the thin blanket scratchy against her arms, her body heavy with exhaustion and dread. Tomorrow, everything changes. Her fingers traced the IV line taped to her wrist, a tether to the life she was fighting for. A stranger's kidney, a second chance. But the thought brought no comfort, only a hollow ache where hope should have been. Marcus isn't here. He chose to leave. The door creaked open, and Eleanor's silhouette filled the frame, her navy coat pristine, her face a mask of calculated concern. Imani's stomach twisted, her pulse quickening. What does she want now? Eleanor stepped inside, her heels clicking against the linoleum, each step deliberate, like a predator circling its prey. "Imani," she said, her voice syrupy, "I wanted to see how you're holding up." Her lips curved into a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes, which glinted with something cold, almost triumphant. "She's here to gloat." Imani sat up straighter, her jaw tight, refusing to let Eleanor see her vulnerability. "I'm fine," she said, her tone clipped. "Thanks for stopping by." Eleanor lingered by the foot of the bed, her gaze sweeping over Imani, taking in the hospital gown, the monitors, the fragility Imani hated admitting. "You're lucky, you know," Eleanor said, her voice laced with condescension. "Finding a donor just in time. Quite the miracle." The word miracle dripped with sarcasm, a jab that cut deeper than Imani expected. "She thinks I don't deserve it." Imani's hands clenched the blanket, her nails digging into her palms. "I'm grateful," she said, forcing the words out, her voice steady despite the fire in her chest. "I won't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break." Eleanor tilted her head, her smile tightening. "You should rest. Tomorrow's a big day." She turned to leave, her parting glance lingering like a challenge. The door clicked shut and Imani exhaled, her body trembling. "She hates me. She always has." The room felt smaller, the walls closing in, the beeping of the heart monitor a relentless reminder of her reality. "I'm alone." The thought was a weight, crushing her. Marcus was in San Francisco, his lie a wound that festered. Eleanor's visit was salt in it, a confirmation of her worst fears. "They're against me, both of them." Evelyn's soft footsteps broke the silence as she entered, her lavender scent a balm against the sterile air. She carried a small thermos of homemade tea, her eyes soft with worry. "How are you feeling, baby?" she asked, settling into the chair beside the bed. Imani's throat tightened, the tenderness in her mother's voice unraveling her defenses. I'm scared, Mama, she whispered, her voice cracking, and I'm so tired of being strong. Evelyn took her hand, her grip warm and steady, grounding Imani in a way Marcus no longer could. You don't have to be strong right now, Evelyn said, her eyes glistening. You just have to get through tomorrow. And you will. Imani's tears spilled over, hot against her cheeks. He's not here, she said, the words spilling out like a confession. Marcus lied about work. He's running from this, from me. And Eleanor, she looked at me like I'm already gone. Her voice broke, the pain raw and exposed. I loved him so much. How did we get here? Evelyn pulled her close, her arms a fortress against the world. You don't need him, Imani. You've got me, and you've got yourself. That's enough. But it didn't feel like enough. The absence of Marcus was a void, a betrayal that carved itself into her bones. He was supposed to be my forever. Evelyn stayed, her presence a quiet strength as the hours ticked toward midnight. She hummed softly, an old lullaby from Imani's childhood, the melody weaving through the sterile silence. Imani closed her eyes, letting it anchor her. I can do this. I have to. But her mind churned, replaying Marcus's avoidance, Eleanor's cruelty, the uncertainty of the surgery. What if it doesn't work? What if I wake up and nothing's changed? The fear was a shadow creeping into every corner of her thoughts. She gripped her mother's hand tighter, as if it could hold her to this world. As Evelyn stepped out to get coffee, Imani stared at the ceiling, the tiles blurring through her tears. The room was too quiet now, the machine's steady hum a cruel contrast to the chaos in her heart. I built my life on him, on us. The memory of their laughter, their plans, felt like a distant dream, tainted by his hesitation and lies. Did I ever really know him? The question stung, sharper than the IV in her vein. She thought of the anonymous donor, a stranger giving her a chance Marcus couldn't or wouldn't. I don't need him. I don't. But the lie tasted bitter, her love for him a stubborn ember that refused to die. The clock on the wall ticked closer to dawn, each second a step toward the unknown. Imani closed her eyes, her breathing shallow, her body heavy with the weight of tomorrow. I'll survive this, with or without him. But as sleep pulled at her, the loneliness was a tide, pulling her under. She whispered into the dark, I'm ready. Not sure if she was speaking to the surgery, to herself, or to the life she might have to build alone. Imani's eyes fluttered open, the haze of anesthesia clinging to her like a heavy fog. The hospital room came into focus, its sterile walls softened by morning light filtering through the blinds. The air was sharp with antiseptic, but a new sensation pulsed within her, a dull ache, a weight in her abdomen where the new kidney now rested. I'm alive. The thought was a lifeline, pulling her from the groggy depths. Her body felt bruised, fragile, but whole. She turned her head, finding Evelyn at her bedside, her mother's face etched with relief, eyes glistening with unshed tears. You did it, baby, Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling as she squeezed Imani's hand. I made it. A weak smile curved Imani's lips, but the victory felt incomplete, shadowed by the emptiness Marcus had left. You're responding well, a nurse said, adjusting the IV drip with practiced efficiency. The heart monitor beeped steadily, a rhythm Imani clung to. The donor kidney is functioning perfectly. Imani nodded, her throat too dry to speak. A stranger saved me. The thought was both a comfort and a sting, a reminder of Marcus's absence. Where is he? Still hiding in his lie? She pushed the thought away, focusing on Evelyn's warm hand, the one constant in this storm. Rest now, Evelyn said, brushing a strand of hair from Imani's forehead. You're going to be okay. But Imani's heart ached, the question of Marcus lingering like a bruise. The door creaked open, and a soft clatter of wheels broke the quiet. Imani turned, her breath catching as a nurse pushed another bed into the room. The patient was pale, his face drawn, a bandage visible beneath the hospital gown. Marcus. Her heart stuttered, shock rippling through her. His eyes met hers, weary but warm, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Hey, he whispered, his voice hoarse. He's the donor. The realization hit like a wave, crashing over her anger, her pain, her doubt. He gave me his kidney. Her mind reeled, torn between gratitude and the raw hurt of his lies. Before she could speak, Eleanor burst through the door, her face a mask of fury and panic. "Marcus!" she shrieked, her voice slicing through the room's fragile calm. "What have you done?" Her eyes darted to Imani, narrowing with venom. "You! You took his kidney! You've ruined him!" Imani flinched, the words a physical blow, but she held Eleanor's gaze, her own anger flaring. "She doesn't get to do this. Not now." The nurse stepped forward, voice firm. "Ma'am, you need to calm down." But Eleanor's voice rose, hysterical. "Give it back. Give my son his kidney back." She lunged toward Imani's bed, her hands outstretched, but security appeared, restraining her as she screamed, "Why, Marcus? Why were you so stupid?" Marcus's face remained still, his eyes fixed on Imani, ignoring his mother's outburst. The guards escorted Eleanor out, her wails echoing down the hall until they faded. The room fell silent again, the air heavy with the weight of what had just happened. Imani's chest tightened, her emotions a tangled knot. He did this for me, after everything. She looked at Marcus, his face pale against the pillow, his breathing shallow. "You're the donor," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, a mix of accusation and awe. Marcus nodded, wincing as he shifted. "Imani, I'm so sorry." His voice cracked, raw with regret. "I hesitated. I let you down. I let her get in my head." He swallowed, his eyes glistening. "I had a dream, a nightmare, that I lost you. When I woke up, I knew I couldn't live without you. I had to do this." Imani's throat burned, tears threatening to spill. "He chose me. But why the lies?" She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but her body was too weak, her heart too conflicted. "I lied about San Francisco," Marcus continued, his voice barely audible. "I knew Mom would stop me if she found out. She'd guilt me, threaten me, anything to keep me from doing this. I couldn't let her win, not when it meant losing you." He reached out, his hand trembling, but the distance between their beds was too great. "I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I made you feel alone. Thank you for giving me a chance to make it right." Imani's tears fell now, hot against her cheeks. "He gave me his kidney. He gave me life." But the pain of his silence, his hesitation, lingered like a scar. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I thought you'd abandon me." Marcus's face crumpled, guilt etching deeper lines into his features. "I was scared," he admitted. "Scared you'd say no, that you'd think I was doing it out of pity. I needed you to know it was my choice, because I love you." The words hung between them, heavy with truth, but tangled in hurt. Imani's mind churned, replaying the nights she'd cried alone, the sting of Eleanor's words, the weight of Marcus's absence. "He loves me, but love shouldn't feel like this." She looked at him, his eyes pleading for forgiveness, and felt the push and pull of her heart, gratitude warring with betrayal. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice raw. "You saved me, Marcus, but you broke me first." He nodded, tears slipping down his face. "I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you'll let me." The promise was a fragile thread, one Imani wasn't sure she could grasp. The monitors beeped softly, a reminder of their shared fragility, their shared survival. "We're both here, both alive." But as she closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling her under, the question remained, can I trust him again? The answer was a shadow, elusive and uncertain, as the room faded into quiet. The hospital room was a sanctuary of quiet. The only sounds the rhythmic beep of monitors and the soft rustle of Imani's blanket as she shifted in her bed. The antiseptic smell had dulled, now a faint backdrop to the sunlight streaming through the blinds, painting stripes across the floor. Imani's body ached, the surgical incision a tight pull beneath her bandages, but she felt alive, fragile but tethered to the world by the kidney Marcus had given her. His kidney. The thought was a strange mix of gratitude and resentment, a knot she couldn't untangle. She glanced at Marcus in the bed beside her, his face still pale, his breathing shallow but steady. He's here. He did this. But the memory of his silence, his lies, lingered like a bruise. Eleanor was gone, barred from the hospital after her outburst, leaving a fragile peace in her wake. The room felt lighter without her, but the weight of what had happened pressed down on Imani. He chose me in the end. But why did it take so long? Marcus stirred, his eyes fluttering open, and their gazes met. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence a bridge between them, tentative but present. He reached for a cup of water on the tray between their beds, his hand trembling slightly, and passed it to her. "You need to stay hydrated," he said, his voice rough but gentle. Imani took the cup, her fingers brushing his, the touch sparking a flicker of the warmth they'd once shared. "Can we get that back?" She sipped the water, the coolness soothing her dry throat. "Thanks," she said, her voice soft but guarded. Marcus nodded, his eyes searching hers as if looking for a way in. He adjusted her pillow with care, his movements slow, deliberate, a silent apology in every gesture. He's trying, but Imani's heart was a fortress, its walls built from days of doubt and betrayal. The monitors beeped in unison, a reminder that they were bound now, not just by love, but by the organ that pulsed within her. He gave me life, but he broke my trust. Days passed in a haze of recovery, their interactions small but meaningful. A shared glance, a quiet laugh when a nurse fumbled with a tray. By the fifth day, they were moved to a shared recovery room, its wide window overlooking Atlanta's skyline. The afternoon sun bathed the room in gold, warming Imani's skin as she sat in a chair, her hospital gown replaced with soft sweats Evelyn had brought. Marcus sat across from her, his own chair angled to face her, his hands clasped tightly. The air was heavy with unspoken words, the moment ripe for truth. "Imani," Marcus began, his voice low, almost breaking. "I hate myself for what I did, for hesitating, for letting Mom get in my head." His eyes were raw, glistening with guilt. "She made me feel like I was betraying her, like giving you my kidney was throwing away my future. But that's no excuse. I was weak and I hurt you." Imani's chest tightened, his words stirring the pain she'd buried. "He sees it now, but it's too late to erase." She leaned forward, her hands gripping the arms of the chair, grounding herself. "You don't know what it was like," she said, her voice steady but laced with hurt. "Feeling you pull away, watching you stand there while she called me a burden. I felt like I was fighting alone." Marcus flinched, his face crumpling. "I know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I saw it in your eyes and it killed me. I was torn, Imani. She's my mom, but you're my everything. I should have chosen you from the start." He leaned closer, his hands reaching out but stopping short, as if afraid to cross the line. "When I lied about San Francisco, it was to protect this us. I knew she'd try to stop me, but I swear, I never meant to make you feel abandoned." Imani's tears welled, her throat burning. "He's telling the truth, but it doesn't erase the nights I cried alone." She wiped her eyes, her voice trembling as she spoke. "I needed you, Marcus. Not just your kidney. I needed my husband, my partner to stand by me. And you weren't there." The words spilled out, raw and unfiltered, each one a release of the pain she'd carried. "I felt so alone, like I was losing you along with my life." Marcus's tears fell now, his shoulders shaking. "I'll never forgive myself for that," he said, "but I'm here now, and I'll keep showing up if you'll let me." The room fell silent, the weight of their words settling like dust. Imani looked at him, seeing the man she'd loved for years, the man who'd cooked her dinners, planned their future, given her a piece of himself. But she also saw the man who'd hesitated, who'd let her feel disposable. Can I trust him again? The question was a wound, but his sacrifice was a stitch, pulling it closed. "I don't know how to forgive you yet," she said, her voice soft but firm. "But I see what you did. You gave me a chance to live. That means something." Marcus nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'll wait," he said, "as long as it takes." The promise was a fragile thread, but Imani felt it, a possibility of rebuilding on a new foundation. Not the perfect one they'd imagined, but one forged in truth. They sat in silence, the city humming beyond the window, their shared recovery a tentative step toward healing. We're both broken, but maybe we can mend together. A week later, they returned home, the familiar walls of their Buckhead house both comforting and strange. Imani stood in the kitchen, her journal open before her, the pages filled with her fears, her anger, her hope. He hurt me, but he saved me. She traced the scar on her abdomen, a mirror to Marcus's own. We're marked by this. Together. She closed the journal, her decision clear. Marcus, she called, her voice steady. He appeared, his eyes cautious but warm. We can try again, she said, but no more lies, no more hesitating. I need you to be the man I married. He stepped closer, his hand finding hers. I will, he said, his voice fierce. I promise. Imani nodded, the weight of her choice settling. It won't be easy, but it's ours. The autumn air in Piedmont Park was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and damp earth as Imani and Marcus walked side by side. The sun hung low, casting a golden glow over the lake, its surface rippling with the breeze. Imani's steps were slow but steady, her body stronger now, 3 months after the surgery. The scar on her abdomen, hidden beneath her sweater, was a faint reminder of the kidney that pulsed within her. Marcus's gift, a tether to life and to him. We made it through. She glanced at him, his face relaxed, a faint scar peeking from under his jacket. He's healing too. Her hand brushed his, a tentative connection, and he laced their fingers together, his grip warm and sure. This feels like us again. Almost. They stopped at a bench overlooking the water. The wood cool beneath Imani's thighs as she sat. The park hummed with life. Joggers, families, a young couple laughing nearby, their joy a mirror to the early days of her and Marcus. We were like that once, so sure of forever. She leaned back, her shoulder grazing his, and let the moment settle. Her body felt like hers again. The swelling gone, the aches faded, but her heart carried new scars, ones no surgery could mend. Can we rebuild? The question lingered, but Marcus's presence, steady beside her, was an answer in itself. You're quiet today, Marcus said, his voice soft, his eyes tracing the horizon. Imani smiled faintly, her fingers tightening around his. Just thinking, she said, about how far we've come and how close we came to losing it all. She thought of the hospital, the sterile silence, Eleanor's venom, Marcus's lies. But she also thought of his sacrifice, the kidney he'd given without telling her, the choice he'd made when it mattered most. He's not perfect. Neither am I. The realization was a quiet shift, a crack letting light into the darkness of her doubts. Marcus turned to her, his eyes warm but shadowed with lingering guilt. I meant what I said, Imani. I'll keep showing up. No more running. His voice was firm, a vow etched in the lines of his face. She nodded, her throat tight. I know, she said, but it's not just about showing up. It's about being here, fully. No more letting her or anyone come between us. Her words were gentle but unyielding, a boundary drawn with love and resolve. Marcus squeezed her hand, his expression fierce. She won't, not anymore. The memory of Eleanor's outburst in the hospital flashed through Imani's mind, her screams, her desperation, her refusal to see Imani as family. She thought she could control him, but Marcus had changed. A week ago in their kitchen, he'd called Eleanor, his voice steady as he set the line. Mom, I love you, but you don't get to decide my life, he'd said, his hand gripping the phone. Imani's my family. If you can't respect that, we're done here. Imani had watched from the doorway, her heart swelling with pride. He's choosing us, Eleanor had argued, her voice shrill through the speaker. But Marcus hung up, his shoulders squared. I meant it, he'd told Imani after, his eyes meeting hers. You're my home. Now in the park, Imani felt the truth of that promise. Their love wasn't the perfect picture it had been. No candlelit dinners could erase the cracks. But those cracks, like the scars on their bodies, told a story of survival, of a love tested and remade. We're not the same, but maybe we're stronger. She leaned closer, her head resting on his shoulder, the wool of his jacket soft against her cheek. The lake shimmered, reflecting the fading sun. And for the first time in months, Imani felt peace. This is enough. For now. Let's go back to the Bahamas plan, she said, her voice light, a spark of their old playfulness. Marcus chuckled, the sound warm, familiar. You sure you trust me to plan it? Last time you redid my itinerary. She laughed, the sound surprising her, bubbling up from a place she'd thought was lost. I'll supervise, she teased, nudging him. His arm slipped around her, pulling her close, and she felt the steady rhythm of his heart. We're finding our way back. The young couple passed again, their laughter fading into the distance, and Imani's mind drifted to their future. Kids. A home filled with noise. The dream felt possible again, not a fragile illusion, but a goal they could build toward, together. What are you thinking? Marcus asked, his breath warm against her hair. She smiled, her eyes on the water. Us, she said simply. What we can be. He kissed her temple, his lips lingering. Better than before, he murmured. I promise. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Imani felt the weight of the past 3 months settle into something new. A foundation not of perfection, but of truth. The kidney within her was more than a lifeline. It was a reminder of Marcus's love, flawed but fierce, and her own resilience, forged in pain and forgiveness. We're not unbreakable, but we're enough. She stood, pulling him up with her, their hands still clasped. Let's go home, she said, her voice steady, her heart full. They walked back through the park, the crunch of leaves underfoot a quiet rhythm, their steps aligned. The road ahead wasn't certain, but it was theirs, and that was all Imani needed to keep moving forward. In the fading light of Piedmont Park, Imani and Marcus walk hand in hand, their scars a silent testament to a love tested by fire. The kidney within her pulses with life, a symbol of sacrifice and second chances. Their marriage, once a perfect facade, now stands on a foundation of raw truth and hard-won forgiveness. The road ahead is uncertain, marked by challenges they'll face together. As the sun sets, casting golden ripples across the lake, Imani knows they've built something stronger, not flawless, but real. With every step, they reclaim their future, bound by love's enduring, imperfect strength.